Welcome everyone to the DC Review Episode 2. In today's episode I'm going to be reviewing two more comics that came out last week, because last week was a really huge week for the DC line of comic books. First, we're going to talk about Green Lantern the Annual, number 1, and then we're going to talk about Justice League number 12, aka the Superman Wonder Woman Makeout Extravaganza. So let's get right down to it. Let's talk about some comics, guys. First one here, Green Lantern the Annual number 1, written by Geoff Johns with art by Ethan Van Sciver. Now, I was super excited about this because I have been following the Green Lantern series since Geoff Johns and Ethan Van Sciver did a little book here called, let me pull it off the shelf, Rebirth, Green Lantern Rebirth, where they introduced, or reintroduced Hal Jordan back into the DC universe. And from Rebirth, Johns wrote close to 60 issues of the Green Lantern, which covered Sinestro Corps War, Blackest Night, War of the Green Lantern, so some huge storylines that kind of coalesced right there at the end into the New 52. And the interesting thing about the Green Lantern series, specifically the one that Johns is writing, is it's, as far as to me, the only book that I'm reading that's basically just a continuation of what was done in the past. Johns has continued this storyline. It's obvious that he had a big story he wanted to tell. He didn't want to rewrite anything that he had done, and he's corporate now, so he can do it. And I was happy about it as a Green Lantern fan. I've really been enjoying the series. So this is leading in to the Rise of the Third Army story, which is going to ripple across the entire line of Green Lantern comic books. So that's Green Lantern Corps, New Guardians, Red Lanterns, and then obviously the Green Lantern main book. I may be missing one there, I'm not sure. So basically, this is the premise. The Guardians of the Universe, in their infinite wisdom, have been trying for billions and billions of years to create order in the universe. So their first army, the Manhunters, that didn't go so well. They ended up slaughtering an entire sector, giving birth to the Red Lanterns. So, okay, that didn't work. Second army, the Green Lantern Corps. In my opinion, that seems like they've been doing a pretty good job patrolling the entire universe and attempting to keep order throughout the vast universe in the DC books. But the Guardians weren't happy about that. They see the Green Lantern Corps as unstable, and they operate on free will. What a concept! But free will, according to the Guardians, leads to chaos. So, what are they going to do? They're going to attempt to eliminate the Green Lantern Corps and instill a new army, the Third Army. And this is kind of where we get a glimpse of what's to come. So this follows right after Green Lantern issue 12, where Hal Jordan and Sinestro are battling the Black Hand on a Coast City cemetery. Now, when I saw they were reintroducing Black Hand, I was like, okay, this is cool, but I didn't want it to be a retread of what they did with Blackest Night, because I love that story, Blackest Night, it's great. And according to these books, the Blackest Night did happen in the new continuity, so I was a little worried we were going to get kind of like a retread of that story. It's not the case. So in this annual, we've got Sinestro, Hal Jordan dealing with Black Hand. Meanwhile, the Guardians are going out somewhere in far reaches of space, looking for what they're calling the Chamber of Shadows, I believe it's what it's called. And within this chamber is the first ever lantern. Now I believe these are new ideas. A lot of this was new to me. So they make their way to the Chamber of Shadows, and using this first lantern, they're going to then build the Third Army. Really cool ideas being thrown around here. I mean, Geoff Johns is introducing a whole new element to the Green Lantern mythos, and I am loving it. Absolutely loving it. So we end, not going to ruin it, it's a big cliffhanger ending. This is what an annual should be. I mean, this is a prologue getting ready, going to launch into the new year of Green Lantern books. Now, artistically, Ethan Van Sciver, awesome artist, so great. I mean, he's really, really good at detail, and his characters feel really large on the page. So he draws a majority of the book, and then in the last maybe 5 or 6 pages, there's an epilogue. Maybe it's even more than 5 pages, about 10 pages, by Pete Woods. Now, Pete Woods, historically for me, has not been an artist I've really liked. He did some work on Action Comics and Superman World of New Krypton a few years ago that I just didn't really like his style. Not the case with this book. This last epilogue, stylistically it's different than the beginning of the issue, but it's really clean and tight lines, and it looks and it feels really, really nice. So I was pleasantly surprised by Pete Woods' work on this book, which makes me curious about what he has been doing on, I think it's a Legion of Superheroes that he's been drawing. So yeah, it was a surprise for me, and I enjoyed it. When I saw his name on the cover, I was like, oh man. But once I looked at it and I read it, I was pleasantly surprised. So I guess, to summarize, Green Lantern Annual #1, absolute must-read for Green Lantern fans. And I will say that going into this new story arc, which is going to be a crossover, I'm intrigued, and it may be a crossover where I end up picking up the books that I haven't previously. Specifically the Red Lanterns book, which has been kind of, I didn't really care for it that much. So, absolute must-read. Jeff Johns, Ethan Van Sciver, Pete Woods, killing it. Alright, the next book, Justice League #12. We got Superman and Wonder Woman making out on the cover. You're in for a good time when you see that on the front of your comic book. So this has been, I always love it when comic books make it into the news, and you see it like online in Yahoo News or something, and it's, to me, kind of entertaining as non-comic book fans writing about comics. But, this has been getting a lot of press for the Superman and Wonder Woman hookup scene, but there's more, there's much more to this book than that. We are getting the conclusion of the David Graves storyline, where David Graves, to give you guys kind of a backstory, he wrote a book about the Justice League, and shortly after it was published, his family came down with a very weird, strange disease, and they died. And he caught the same disease too, and he was slowly dying as well. So he holds the Justice League responsible for what happened to his family, because they contracted this illness shortly after Darkseid had invaded Earth. So it's very personal for Graves, and he attacks the League more on an emotional level, where he brings out their fears and elements from their past and dead loved ones, which he then uses against the League. So we get a lot of great character moments, a lot of personal character moments with this book. We see Bruce Wayne staring up at the visage of his dead parents, and he's completely unaware of anything else going on, which is unusual to see Batman like that. But we know his dead parents are what made him who he is. So the League are battling Graves and these demons. And I shouldn't call them demons, they're more just like spirit parasites that feed off emotion. Similar to a Black Lantern, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But when this kind of wraps up, Graves isn't as great as a villain as, like, say, Darkseid, but there are some good moments, like I said. But when the story kind of wraps up is where I think this issue really becomes really interesting, where we see the League really questioning themselves and questioning what they did. And, honestly, it's because of them that Graves contracted this illness and his family was killed. So there's a lot of kind of introspection with the League thinking about this. It ends with one of the members quitting the team. And actually there's another scene where they're debating who the new, they think they should have a new leader. And, and Aquaman's like, hey, I've led the others. I'm in charge of an entire continent. I think, I'd be a pretty good leader of the Justice League. and Batman shoots him down, which crushed me inside. I was so excited, thought Aquaman was going to take over the leadership of the Justice League, but it didn't happen. But when we leave this issue, it's, man, the league is in shambles. Wonder Woman is really dealing with the end of her relationship with Steve Trevor. She's reflecting on her life as a superhero and how complicated love can be. And Superman, shows up and he shares that feeling. And he asks her, she asks him, do you ever feel alone? And they kind of stare at each other, and that's when, oh man, they hook up, and it's, I'm wondering where this is going. What's Lois thinking about this? I'm not really sure. And, is this going to be consistent across all the Superman books? Are we going to have a Superman-Wonder Woman relationship? I don't know. I'm excited to see where that goes. And the great thing about this book, we got to get a preview of what's to come in the next year of Justice League stories. So I am really excited. We see Aquaman leading an army of Atlanteans, Superman and Captain Marvel really battling, going at it, and then Batman and Cyborg, letting the readers know that there's a traitor in the ranks. So super cool stuff. The one kind of bummer about this book is we don't get another Shazam story. In the previous 5 or 6 issues, Geoff Johns and Gary Frank have been telling the story of Billy Batson in backups in the main Justice League book, which I've really, really been enjoying. And I was a little disappointed that we don't get the next installment of that story. So, and we also get a little preview here of the new Justice League of America book that's coming out 2013 by Geoff Johns and David Finch, which is going to be a whole new team that maybe is going to pick up the slack when the Justice League, who knows, maybe they disband. So it's exciting, really exciting time to be a fan of the Justice League. And Geoff Johns, some people may give him some slack, but he is my all-time probably favorite writer. And he, if you look at the books that I pick up, 2/3 of them are probably written by him right now. So great time to be a DC fan. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'm doing a different recording technique this time. I hope this works out. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, read some comics.